So, okay, let's start with, in your portfolio,
Oh, God.
which is your favorite startup?
I can't say that. I have two of my companies in the audience. Genuinely, I don't have a favorite. It's like
I say that all the time. You know it's not true. There has to be one.
I can't. It's like picking a favorite child. It's like I'm sure you probably do have a favorite child, but you probably should never say that out loud. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I'll ask you an easier question. So you travel a lot.
Yes.
What has Rosie's funniest reaction been? Rosie is her dog.
Rosie's my dog.
Yeah, and we see a lot of the stories she puts up about Rosie and how annoyed Rosie becomes and how Rosie ignores you. What has been the funniest reaction that you've had from Rosie when you've gone back from one of your travels?
Yeah. So my mom, I don't know how many people know this, my mom is Bangladeshi, and there's this word in Bangla that's Obhiman, which is like a Bengali poetry word. That's kind of like when you come in, it's like when a woman is upset with you or a man is upset with you, but they ignore you, but you know that they're upset. So that's my dog in a nutshell. For the first day, she won't even like come close to me. She's just like upset that I left her. And she's like, how could you? It's very dramatic. So she's Obhiman with me.
No, but seriously though, Kalsoom, you travel a lot. And you don't travel like we travel from Karachi to Lahore. You're traveling from Washington, D.C. to Islamabad to Lahore, Karachi. How do you do it? And how many times a year?
Jehan, you also travel a lot.
No, but not that much.
It's helpful to have frequent flyer miles and get upgraded a lot because you travel so much. I have a ton of hacks in terms of noise-canceling headphones for really loud children on airplanes. No offense to people with kids. Sorry. Also just making sure I sleep whenever I get time. So that's the best. But honestly, pre-COVID, I was traveling so much that my body was breaking down. So COVID in a lot of ways was the first time I was in one place for a really long time. And it was actually really nice. I was like, oh, that was the longest my husband and I have ever spent together. It was kind of great.
Okay. So you moved from running an accelerator to now managing a venture fund. What's the thing that you like most about being a VC, and what is it that you don't like at all?
I'll start with what I don't like. There's a lot. I think venture capital, I think in the way Silicon Valley does venture capital can feel very bro-y and sometimes really toxic, right? This whole idea of growth at all costs, that you have to have like a 10x, this has to be 20x, and it's a constant inflation of things. I hate that. It feels really, first of all, I feel like it's not founder driven. It's like making founders, it's the reason why I think oftentimes we'll see toxic cultures in startup workplaces, right? And obviously there's been a lot out in the media recently, TV shows and things like that have talked about it. And I think venture capital as an asset class sometimes has played a role in that in terms of what it pushes. And so I think I used to think venture capital was a completely bad word in that way. I was like, I never want to be called a VC. And so I think that was what I came in with. What I realized, and Mispa and I have so many friends now in the VC space, there are so many incredible venture capital funds that are actually doing things differently, that are really founder driven. And we've learned so much from friends of ours, people that actually care about what they're building and what they're doing, that aren't about the hype. And I think that to me is what's been really fun. I always say this, that I feel like it's, and you know this, I don't come from finance, like my master's is in conflict resolution. And weirdly, I use conflict resolution a lot, especially in investor negotiations, constantly dealing with, our founders and our investors. So it's been a fun surprise to realize that even though I don't come from the typical VC background, that maybe I have superpowers that are slightly different and maybe give me a better vantage point as a VC.
Okay. Now that we've seen that there are a lot more foreign investors that are looking at Pakistan, okay, things have slowed down a little, but they'll come back. What do you think that they're looking at in Pakistan, apart from the big market and all of that, that is exciting them about the Pakistani founder?
I think a lot of what happened last year was, I mean, there was so much that happened last year, right? And we've been in this. I mean, Jehan is like the queen of the startup ecosystem. I always call her lonely handmaid. I was just like happened to be there. We've been part of this for so long, you know, that in the last year, so much happened. There was so much that was happening that was really exciting. And I think what's interesting is that a lot of VCs, a lot of international venture capital funds, Baksan has never been part of anyone's mandate, right? Like we've always been an exception. And I think what was really cool is that once they invested in one Paksani founder, I've had so many investors that were literally like, damn, these guys are amazing. I was like, I know. We've been saying this for years. Like, where have you been? And it just led them to wanting to invest in more deals. And I think right now with everything going on in the macro environment, you know, there is a slowdown, there is a pause, but I don't think, and Ms. Ben and I were just out in San Francisco and Palo Alto, and met a lot of these VCs. I think even though generally the world is, you know, a little bit scary and crazy right now, the fundamentals of Baksan haven't changed, right? The founders are actually the best founders. I mean, I'm biased and you're biased, but Baksani founders are the most resilient, the best founders I've ever worked with in my life and who I've met, yes. And if anything, this is a time to build, it's a time to prove that. And so I think when these international VCs, you know, they're still investing, but even when they continue to invest, I think that still holds true.
So yesterday, I remember on the panel on scale or fail, there was a lot of discussion on, you know, how do you reach out to a VC and the normal founder, the one who's not connected, how does he do it? I'm sure you receive a lot of cold emails. Mm-hmm. Is there any one cold email that you've received that really stood out, and why? Why was that?
I will tell, it's not a story of a founder, maybe a would-be founder, but as someone is actually on our insights team. I'm looking at Umbreen because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's a 19-year-old named Shifra who's based in Toronto. She is a genius, basically started homeschooling. By the time she was 19, she'd already worked with the Nigerian government on collecting data. She created a chatbot to help Pakistani women affected by domestic violence. And she created, just out of the blue, got into the Pakistan startup space, like was really excited about it, created an Airtable that tracked what was happening in the Pakistani startup space, tweeted it, tagged me and a bunch of people like Atif and a few other people, and I immediately messaged her. I was like, who are you? I want to hire you. I had no idea she was 19. And then she told me, she's like, oh, I'm graduating high school next week. Can we talk the week after? I was like, what? This girl's amazing. And we hired her a year ago. And she's been on our insights team. If you look at any of the data that Invest to Innovate puts out and a lot of the graphics, it's all Shifra. So that to me is my favorite thing, is that she thought I was joking, so she loves to say that she literally thought, like, when I said, I want to hire you, she was like, oh, she must not mean it, and I literally hired her a week later,
So if in this room, I think there are some people who might be exploring the opportunity of starting a business. Do you think this is a good time to do it?
Hell yes. I mean, it's hard, of course. There's never a good time to start a business. In terms of, I think the thing is like there's so many problems to solve in Pakistan, and I think what's really important, and I love that Malika said this, that you fall in love with the problem, not the solution. But I think this is the thing, right? Is like right now the environment is shifting. Pay attention to where the problems are coming up, the spaces that arise. Don't do B2B e-commerce because everyone's doing B2B e-commerce. Do it because you really see a problem that needs to be solved anywhere. I think that money will still come, especially if you're building strong businesses where the fundamentals work, where the unit economics can be positive. I think those type of companies are still attracting capital. We're still investing, so I mean, I'm still excited about great businesses, but I'm really the most excited about founders that are going to get in the weeds and build and not be really great at fundraising necessarily, but be great at building a business. So I think there's a lot of problems, so there's no better time to build a business, but I also recognize that, you know, there's a lot of scariness happening too.
So just a related question. My team said, why don't we ask Kalsoom, does money bring happiness? But no, I didn't want to ask that. What I wanted to ask was, is money really a necessity at the early stage of when you're trying to build a business?
I think If I said no, that's speaking from a place of privilege, and I don't think that's fair to say, right? I think that, and we did actually collected a lot of data on this with the ecosystem report that we put out in 2021 about how much privilege is played into people raising money, right? It's your network. If you've gone to a foreign university, it's played into who's raised capital in this market. And so, yes, unfortunately, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs all over the world, sometimes privilege helps, and I don't think that's fair. And so that's why programs like what Katalyst is doing, what we've been doing to Invest to Innovate, it's about leveling the playing field, right? And so if you don't have money, if you don't have those connections, how can platforms like that also be supportive and helpful for you, right? But it is hard, and I think also at the end of the day, like you don't need $1 million to build a business. I think we kind of got weirdly obsessed with every press release that came out last year had to be at least $1 million. Yeah. Did you notice that? I was literally like, is everybody raising $1 million? And you don't have to, right? It's like, what can you build? And I think
maybe $100,000 would get you started.
$100,000 can be great. And I mean, people talk about family, friends, and fools. Sherry brought this up on the panel yesterday. But I mean, that's only if your family, friends, and fools have money, right? So how can you, like, with what you have, and like, how can you build network? How can you join programs like this? How can you come to conferences like this? This has been an amazing 2 days, and I hope you've built connections. How can those help further that for you?
What more do you think we can do as an ecosystem? I mean, people did question us when we said, okay, we're doing this conference and we're not doing it in one city, but in 3 cities. They said, this is not the time. This is, times are hard. Time. So I think there's never a wrong time to engage with people and to try and start conversations. What more can we do collectively, do you think, to help the economy of this country and to help young people who are wanting either to start a business or join a business or do something that is impactful for the economy of this country and the people?
Yeah, I think, when you said collectively, I think that's the key word. I think a lot of people who've never heard about the Pakistani startup space heard about it for the first time last year, and they thought it happened overnight. And as we know, who've been here through the thick and thin, it's been going on for a really long time, and I think sometimes the challenge is, and this happens sometimes in the VC space, that it can be very elbows up, it can be competitive, and I think Pakistan as a startup space, we have to be able to exist whether or not international VC money is coming into this country or not, right? And I think when we talk about collectively, an ecosystem is about so many different levers that make a startup ecosystem healthy, right? And so what are we doing collectively to be supportive of, the fact that we were proud to be a sponsor of Katalyst Labs, that we messaged Jehan, we're like, we want to support this, right? And how can, our team from Invest to Innovate is here, how can we all be working more collectively together to be supportive of each other rather than seeing this in the scarcity mindset that only one of us can be the star, right? That's never going to work. And I think at the end of the day, this ecosystem will be built by Pakistanis for Pakistanis, and I think that's what needs to happen.
Last question. So we still don't...
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, don't be shy. What can we do to bring more women into this ecosystem? I mean, this time I was happy. There were many more women in the audience than we have seen in the past, right? But how can we increase the numbers? Because why is it that why is it that they feel that they cannot be part of this whole ecosystem?
I mean, I think we've had a lot of women go through the doors at, Nest.io, now Katalyst, for us too, at Invest to Innovate and i2i Ventures. I think as women, there's a lot of responsibility when it comes to paying it forward, but also about creating space. So women, when they don't see themselves on stage, when they don't see themselves at the head of organizations, they oftentimes don't feel like they have a place in the room, right? And so there's a role that we've played even without meaning to sometimes, but I think what also is amazing, and I say this about 021Disrupt and now 92Disrupt, you will never see a manel at Disrupt, right? In terms of only men. And I think that's amazing too, because to have diversity means that not only is there diversity of perspectives, but also that people in the audience can see that they can be part of something as well. And I think that's super important. It's also really important to empower the women on your team in order to, and I'm looking over at my team right now, for them to feel that they can grow, that they can actually go on and do other things. I think there's so much we can do.
No, Absolutely. And I think that we've done that and we've continued to do that. And the male champions also help, I feel.
Oh my gosh, it's so important. Male allyship is really important.
Right.
Hashtag.
Thank you. See, it wasn't tough. I asked
No, she scared me on purpose today, guys.
I'm just trying to see how much grit you have. Thank you, Kalsoom. Thank you so
guys.
much.